Okay, so my name's Cheryl. I've been at the University of Portsmouth since 2007. Started my undergraduate degree in 2007, finished my postgraduate in 2013, and have been working here since November 2012. So, started part time as an hourly paid sessional teaching member of staff, moved to full time in 2015, and am now associate head academic for the law school, which I gained my position as associate head in May 21, and my recent position in January. More confidence in my ability to be at the level that I was at. So I've always been confident in my people skills. I've never had any issues in any role that I've ever had throughout my working life, but felt like it was time to explore different avenues to see how I could do things better and confirm if my approaches were going along the right lines or if practices had changed and some of the things I doing was now becoming unacceptable, just to really reflect and refocus and readdress where I was at that current time. So my expectations were that I was going to go on a journey of self-discovery. I knew it was a reflective process. I knew it was time given to me by my employer to do these things. So I was given permission to have this time to go through this process. And I knew it was going to be challenging personally, but I was ready to take that challenge and ready to move forward. I think it was more confidence in myself, confidence in my approaches. I wanted to reflect on how others viewed me. And I think in a group setting where everybody is completely new, it really does enable you to open up to that vulnerable reflection that perhaps, good or bad, we may just brush aside as a daily process. So I think it was more just allowing myself to be to absorb others' reactions to what I was saying and who I was. So that was that was quite a key thing that I wanted to take away from that. Certainly went into the program with a completely open mind of I was willing to change anything and everything. So anything and everything that could be reflected on was going to be a bonus. So there was no preconceived ideas of what I wanted to achieve. I just wanted to open myself up to the whole process and see what came of it. Massively, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, very much so.
okay.
Particularly in reflecting on your own practices and my own ways of dealing with things and my own resilience levels and tolerance levels. I came away learning things about myself that I didn't realize were things before. I was surprised at the things that I was doing well, and I was surprised at how easy tiny little changes could make some things a lot better. Um, so yeah, it wasn't all easy. There were some challenging aspects to it, and particularly sort of just coming out of COVID in a group setting, remembering how to be with people. um, sort of, I'd say it was eye opening, but for the right reasons. The fact that we all met online for the first session was really helpful because it enabled me to get to know people in a secure space that was my own home. I sort of had my home comforts around me, so I could instantly start with that open approach that perhaps I wouldn't have done had we have all been in the same room physically.
Yeah.
So our first session was online, and then the rest of our sessions were all in person.
Okay.
And I think
Yeah.
that made a real difference. Quite a lot of us were appreciative of having that time to be in our own space, and then we're really excited to meet people properly. So that spurred sort of an enthusiasm that perhaps would have been tainted by trepidation beforehand. The workbook is amazing, but I think it's important to recognise that you can't necessarily engage with everything in the book, and that's okay. As long as you're being true to yourself and doing the work that you think is going to benefit you, then I think it's okay to give yourself permission to not necessarily engage with everything in that, because there are some things that I felt were irrelevant to where I was at that point. So although we discussed them in sessions and I made notes, it wasn't necessarily something that I'd paid particular attention to. I took away from the fact that everybody has their own preconceived ideas about themselves, and everybody generally is quite insecure, and that felt really nice to know that sort of these people who seemed really put together actually were just normal people once you got to know them. So that was really nice. You were sort of forced into realizing that, which was really helpful. And one of the things I did really benefit from was the fact that it was a female cohort. And I think that is what I loved about Springboard the most, was because it was really nice to be able to just be open and upfront and know that the majority of people would just understand. So I'd not necessarily say that what you're thinking is right, and we would challenge some perspectives, but it was nice to all be in that same position of understanding such things as being the default parent or the default carer, or having to balance out a lot of issues that perhaps not many male counterparts would understand. So it was nice to have that benefit.
Absolutely, I can completely relate to what you're saying, because men and women think completely differently and process things in completely different ways. So that is the reason why Springboard is for women and Navigator is for men, because it works so well, and you need to have that space to feel in a safe environment where you can speak and not feel, although yes, you're open to being challenged, you don't want it to come across in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
So yeah, I completely agree with you there.
I think especially with things that are important, and I think from a male perspective as well, they see things differently to what we do, and some men see things differently to how some women see things, not generalizing everything. But sometimes the real key issues or the key feelings, because I'm quite emotive, I find I get my back goes up a little bit if I feel that that's being challenged undeservedly, and if it's a woman thing, then I'm very protective of that. So yeah, it was nice to just have none of that. And I think listening to their journeys as well, how they've got to where they are and their life experiences is really, yeah, it's really refreshing, even though some of them are less than ideal in terms of modern living. It's certainly refreshing to see that everyone's just wants to be better for many reasons, and I think that's the mindset that was really noticeable, that everyone went there with a view of improving something. So that growth mindset was there from the start for everyone. Yes, massively. I don't apologize for things anymore. If I make a mistake, I apologize still. Obviously I would do that, but yeah, if I'm asking people to do things, it's because I need them to do it. So I don't apologize for it. I just let them know that I appreciate them taking the time. And that's created a different mindset, because I feel more in control of my role now, as opposed to feeling like I need that validation from other people going, oh, it's okay, don't worry. And yeah, so it's helped in that sense to create that level that I'm at now. Certainly my communication's clearer. I've learned to be more concise and straight to the point, and simple things like addressing emails. If instead of just sending an email saying, oh, can you do this, it's more like action needed, this is the email, and really being concise and getting people to learn that you know, this is for information, you can read it at a later date, this is what I need you to do, this is urgent, do it now. So yeah, there's lots of changes that have meant a more fluid relationship with colleagues as well, and sort of manage those expectations a bit more. So I'm quite an assertive person anyway. If I need things to be done, they need to be done, and that's it. But I'm quite aware of other people's ability to do things if they're busy or there's stuff going on, which is why I apologise. But in terms of being assertive, I needed to learn to be assertive in the right way, because I can very much become, look, I've asked you twice now, for God's sake, you're making my life hard, just do your job. And it became and it was put to me that by making it that person's responsibility, it was almost becoming confrontational. And that was such a good point.
Okay.
And now when I write my emails, instead of saying I've asked you to do this twice, I'll just say, oh, hi, just referring back to the email I sent, we really need to get this done. Is it possible that you can do so and so, so and so? Or I need this and this information by such and such a date. Any problems, let me know, as opposed to going, I've asked you twice to do your. So yeah, I've learned how to take that step back, and that's made a difference actually in the responses that I get. So the working relationships, again, just flow that bit better. I think it was nice because it prompted conversations at home with my partner and my eldest daughter as well, and it sort of gave us the ability to be able to understand each other more as well in different ways. I think one of the key things I took away was an improvement to my communication skills, and sort of having a conversation with my partner and about messages and things, and he's like, yeah, when I read your messages, I can hear you saying it. And we were talking about things like that and the difference it would make. And some of my colleagues have said the same. And yeah, so it's just prompted sort of conversations about little habits and quirks that I have, but that I was never mindful of before. One of the questions related to dealing with change. And I was at home when I was doing the workbook, and I said to my partner, I was like, look, outsider in, how do I deal with change? Because I think I deal with it quite well. And he just looked at me and he laughed and he was like, yeah, once you've got over your toddler tantrum, your banging of the keyboard to send an email, and the fact that you need to go and have 40 hours of just laying in a dark room rocking to get over this change. He was like, yeah, you deal with it fine. But that was really helpful to know, because I'd never ever realised that I did this. And it can be any change. It can be from we're changing a meeting, and I really go off on, oh my God, there's change, and I sort of have this massive toddler tantrum, and then I'm like, right, okay. But once I've got over that, I'm full focus. Let's just move forward. Let's deal with this. Let's solve it. So it was nice to know that that little bit happened, because the tantrums have become a bit shorter. I can explain myself to colleagues a bit better as well. It really did make me aware of some of the things that I hadn't actually ever been aware of before. But consequently, following on from that conversation, as jovial as it was, it really enabled us to have a talk, to be able to communicate about my little quirks. And then my partner started asking about his little quirks and the things he did. And so, yeah, it became really nice to reflect on each other, which is something that we would never normally do. It was good for many reasons. I found it intense in some chapters. I think most of them were fine, and most of them were helpful, and certainly a few chapters were very beneficial. And I think they were the chapters that perhaps I identified with as being things I wanted to change about myself. So I was probably more engaged with those and wanted to gain more from them. I still refer back to the workbook, and I think that's more just to keep myself grounded than anything, and to see if I'm falling back into old patterns or if there's room to move further forward. So I certainly do that. And I think the workbook was a godsend from that perspective, because it's so personal. It really was like a diary of what I was thinking at that time. And it's nice to go back to that and remember that. I've taken forward a lot of things that make changes in my work and that's led to an increased confidence in being able to articulate what I mean and say what I want to say, and not worry necessarily as such about negative feedback on things that I'm trying to suggest. And I just look at different ways of trying to make it work. So the resilience levels increased. But certainly overall, I just thought it was an amazing experience. Really was an amazing experience to go through at a time in my career when I needed to do it. So yeah, it just had it. Yeah,
Okay.
just amazing. I think potentially shorter sessions, but more of them. And I say that
Okay.
because, as I say, I really went in with that reflective mindset, and I felt that at the end of a whole day, I was reflecting on so much, I kind of got confused with where I was going. Whereas I think if they were shorter sessions that allowed for that greater reflection period on the particular area that we were talking about that morning, like assertiveness, I may well have been able to do more than I have already. So even though I gained so much out of it, I think I probably would have benefited from sort of half days fortnightly as opposed to full days monthly, just to be
Okay.
able to keep on that reflect and change pattern that I adopted. So, but that would be my only thing. I think it's amazing. I'm all for self growth, and I'm always prepared to do what I need to do, or to change, to adapt, to grow, and to have that support from the people who would benefit from that. I think it's brilliant. I think it's a win-win, isn't it? I'm getting the self-therapy, I'm becoming a better employee, and they're paying for me to become a better employee, and they're reaping the benefits because I become a better employee. So yeah, I think it's good that that's been recognised. And I think because I did it through work, it was almost, as I say, having that permission to have that time and to be able to put my out of office on, and that expectation that you weren't going to be answering emails because you were having a day to do this, made that therapy more special, I suppose, because work were paying for you to do it. It made me feel valued enough that I wanted to do the best I could with it. So yeah, that therapy
Okay.
comment
Yeah.
was definitely what it was, because it is valuable, and I think it's something that everyone should do at some point. So yeah, it's been great.